Hello everybody, welcome into another lesson. So today we are going to continue factoring quadratic equations in the form of ax² plus bx plus c. But today the coefficient of a will not be 1, it'll be anything other than 1. And we will show you how to deal with that. So let's get started with our first example here. We have 3x squared plus 7x plus 2. So we've been given 3x squared plus 7x plus 2. So what you have to do are take factors of, so when the coefficient of the x squared term is greater than 1, or not 1, I should say, anything other than 1, you have to consider factors of 3x squared. You got to consider factors of the whole thing. Which factors of 3x squared? You could have x and 3x. And that's really about it. You're just going to get x and 3x. Then you're going to take factors of your constant term, which would be 2. Well, factors of 2 are, well, 1 and 2. Okay? So far we have our factors of 3x squared, we have our factors of 2. The idea is, whenever the factors of these two terms are multiplied and added together, it should give you the middle term of 7x. So let's figure this out in such a way that we can multiply factors together and then add them to get a middle term of 7x. If we take the first factor of 3x squared, x, we multiply that by 1, you get x. If you take that 3x, multiply it by the other factor of 2, which is 2, you get 6x. Now if you add those results together, you add x and 6x, you get the sum of factors being 7x. Which is exactly what you need your middle term to be, is 7x. So, what you're going to do now is take your factors of the 3x squared, you'll form your parentheses, you'll put x, you'll skip the other part for now, times the quantity of 3x. So you have x and 3x in the first position for each of the quantities. That's going to help you. Now that everything in this is positive, it's going to be plus inside your parentheses. Okay. Whoops, not plus 2, excuse me. Excuse me. Just a plus. Now, where does the 1 and where does the 2 go for your factors of 2? Because that's the next part. You'll want to put your factor of 2 right here and your factor of 1 right here. The reason being is because when you take 2 times 3x, you get 6x. You take x times 1, you get x. So 6x plus 1x gives you 7x when you FOIL this out. So basically you took 3x times 2, you'll want to have 2 times 3x right here. Then you have x times 1, which you have right here. So it's all about knowing how to position to get your middle term of 7x. If we FOIL this out, you'll get x times 3x, which is 3x squared, plus x times 1, which is x, plus 2 times 3x, which is 6x, plus 2 times 1, which is 2. Simplify this, you would end up getting 3x squared plus 7x plus 2. You would get the original expression right back. You want to have your factors of the second of your constant term arranged in such a way that you get your middle term of 7x when they're multiplied and added together. So the factorization for this polynomial should be the quantity of x plus 2 times the quantity of 3x plus 1. And I'll do more examples. There's plenty more where this came from. All right. Let's see. We have the quantity of 2x squared plus 5x plus 3. So we have the polynomial 2x squared plus 5x plus 3. So we need to first find factors of 2x squared, which would be x and then 2x. Those are factors of 2x squared. When you multiply them together, you get the 2x squared, so that checks out. Next, we need to find factors of the constant term 3. So factors of 3, well, that'd be 1 and 3. Now, we need to do this in such a way that when you multiply the factors of 2x squared and 3 together and then add them, you get the middle term of 5x. So let's think about how we're going to do that. Let's say I take the first term x times the first factor of 1, you get x. Let's say I take that 2x times the second factor of 3, you get 6x. When you add those together, x and 6x, you get 7x. Well, we need our middle term to be 5x, not 7x, so that doesn't work. Well, thankfully, we can also multiply them another way. Sometimes it's going to be a bit of trial and error in how you do this. Basically, you may not succeed at first, but try again. We tried x times 1. How about x times 3 this time? If we do x times 3, so x times 3, you would get 3x. Then if you did 2x times 1, well, you would get 2x. Now if you add 3x and 2x together, you should get 5x, which in fact gives you your middle term of positive 5x. So now you're going to take your factors that we have of 2x squared, which would be the quantity of x plus something, because everything's positive in this one here, in this polynomial. It's going to be x plus something times the quantity of 2x plus something. Now, what are those somethings? Well, we had 2x times 1 being 2x, so you're going to put your 1 here, make that x plus 1. And then you're going to have your other factor of 3, because you had x times 3. That'll go at the very end of the second factor. Because if you take 1 times 2x, you should get 2x plus x times 3, which would be 3x. You take 2x plus 3x, you get the middle term of 5x. So the factors you should get for this would be the quantity of x plus 1 times the quantity of 2x plus 3. And if you FOIL this out, you'll get the original polynomial back. Alright, there's still more. Alright, let's go on to the very next one here. We have 3c squared minus 8c plus 5. So we got 3c squared minus 8c plus 5. Well, you're still going to start with finding your factors of 3c squared. So let's go ahead and do that. Factors of 3c squared would be, well, c and 3c, and that's really about all we can do on that. Now, we would find factors of 5. That's absolutely true. We are totally going to find factors of 5. However, notice your middle term is negative. If your middle term is negative, you need to find negative factors that make your constant. So factors of 5 that are negative, you would get -1 and -5. You get -1 and -5. So, because if you take -1 times -5, you get +5 for your constant. Okay. Now, we need to take these factors and multiply them in such a way that when we add them up, you get the middle term of -8c. How are we going to do that? We could take that c times -5. So if you take c times -5, you'll get -5c. Then if you take that 3c times -1, you'll get -3c. If you add the multiplied factors together, the -5c and the -3c, you get the sum of factors to be -8c, which is exactly what you need to get your middle term of -8c. Alright, so we've established how we need to multiply them now. So now you're going to take your factors of 3c squared, which would be c times the quantity of 3c. Now, your constant term was positive, but your middle term was negative, meaning you're actually going to have 2 minuses here for your factors because you need to make your middle term negative. Because here, if you take c times 3c squared, c times 3c, you get your 3c squared. Now, we took 3c times -1, so you're going to put the 1 right here at the end of the first parenthesis, so you'll get -1 times 3c. That would give you -3c. Then you did c times -5, so you'll put your 5 right here at the end of the second parenthesis. So c times 3c gives you 3c squared. -1 times -5 gives you a +5 for your constant term. So now you have -5c minus 3c, you get your -8c. It's because you want to have it where you basically have your the way you determine that they should be multiplied close together. If I would have had this the other way around, if I would have had 5 here and 1 there, that wouldn't work because you'd have -5 times 3c, and then you'd have c times -1. You would actually end up getting -16c instead of -8c. That wouldn't work. You want to arrange the factors in such a way where that 1 multiplies times a 3c, and that c can multiply by that 5. And you get that middle term of -8c. And if you're in doubt, if you arrange it wrong, that's okay. I highly encourage you, until you get used to doing this and can spot it well, to FOIL out your answer first, see what you get. If you get the wrong answer, you put the factors of the constant in the wrong order. You just need to switch the order, and then you can refoil to check and you'll get the right answer. But the factors you should get for this would be the quantity of c minus 1 times the quantity of 3c minus 5. So yeah, and again, like we've been doing the past couple lessons, I highly encourage you to make a table. A table's certainly going to help you with being able to factor these, especially now that we're doing the constant on the first term being something other than 1. That's really going to help you. Okay. What's the next one? We have 2x squared minus 15x plus 7. So we got 2x squared minus 15x plus 7. First, we need to find factors of 2x squared, which factors of 2x squared would be x and then 2x. That checks out because if you multiply x times 2x, you get 2x squared. Okay. Now, we need to find factors of positive 7. However, notice the middle term is negative. We're going to have to find two negative factors of 7 that would work, which would be -1 and -7. Those are factors we can use. Alright, so because if you multiply -1 times -7, you get positive 7 for your constant term. So far this is checking out. Now, we need to multiply these two sets of factors in such a way that when you add the sum of the multiplication, you get the middle term of -15x. Why don't we start with 2x times -7? We'll take 2x times -7, which would give you -14x, which would just leave x times -1. You take x times -1, you would get -x. Now, so that you've done the multiplication, you add the -14x and the -x together, you in fact get a sum of -15x for your sum of factors, which is exactly what you need because your middle term is -15x. So now you're going to take your factors of 2x squared, you'll do x in your first quantity times the quantity of 2x in your second quantity. Okay. Now, the constant term was positive and your middle term was negative, so that means you're going to have two minuses inside your quantity. You'll have two minuses. So now, we had 2x times -7. That means your 7's going to go inside the first quantity, so you could take that -7 and multiply it by 2x, which means you multiplied x times -1, so you'll put your 1 here inside the second quantity, so you can get x times -1, which would give you -x. If you take -x minus 14x, you get -15x for your middle term. So your factors of this are going to be the quantity of x minus 7 times the quantity of 2x minus 1. That's exactly what you would get. X minus 7 times the quantity of 2x minus 1. Alright. We got 5y squared plus 4y minus 1. Alright. So we got 5y squared plus 4y minus 1. Well, first we need to take factors of 5y squared for our first term. 5y squared factors of that would be y and 5y. So you'll get y and 5y. And if you multiply y and 5y, you in fact get 5y squared. So that checks out. Now we need to find factors of the constant term of -1, because you have a negative for your constant term. We need to find factors of -1. Well, that would be -1 and +1. Those would be factors. That would be -1 and +1. And if you take -1 and +1 and multiply it, you'll get -1. So that checks out. Now, we need to multiply these and add them in such a way that when you do so, you get the middle term of +4y. What you can do is take that y times times -1. So basically the factors are here for you to play with. You choose the order and figure out what you're going to get for your middle term. And if you don't get the desired result, you reconfigure it and try it the other way. That's really all it is. Sometimes, as I said, this will be trial and error. There's no shame in that. So you take y times -1. That's going to give you an answer of -y. So if I take that 5y times the factor of +1, I get +5y. So now if I go ahead and add -y and 5y together, I get +4y. So that means I've arrived at what I need. I got my middle term of +4y. So now you're going to take your factors of 5y², which would be y, quantity, and then 5y. This is where it gets tricky when you have a negative constant term, because one of these is going to be plus, one of these is going to be minus. Well, we know if we take y times 5y, you get 5y². We're good on that. Alright. Factors of 1 are easy enough. You're going to have 1 in each, but which one is plus, which one's minus? Well, we multiplied 5y times +1, 1 times 5y, so this would have to be +1, since you multiplied 5y times +1, which can only mean the second one's got to be -1. So in the end, you end up with a quantity of y plus 1 times the quantity of 5y minus 1. And if you go to FOIL this out, the middle terms, you'll get 5y, then minus y, you would get 4y. It's all about that middle term in the end. So that's how we arrived at the quantity of y plus 1 times the quantity of 5y minus 1. Alright. (3a² plus 4a minus 4). Alright, so we got 3a² plus 4a minus 4. Well, first we need to find our factors of 3a². So let's look for factors of 3a². Well, that would be a and 3a. And if you take a and 3a and multiply them together, you get 3a². That checks out so far. Now, you got -4. You need to find factors of -4. Well, of course we can start, well, let's do -2 times 2. Let's give that a try. I have a good feeling about it. Let's do -2 times 2. Again, if you want to go through all the factors, you sure can. But I'm just trying to save us some time here, because I pretty much know how this is going to work. I'm trying to save us a lot of grief of going through each factor, because these problems can get a little long if you do that. Okay. Now, we need to figure out a way to multiply these and then add the sum of the factors together to get that middle term of positive 4a. Well, if I take 3a times 2, I take 3a times 2, I would get 6a. So I took 3a times positive 2, which just leaves a times negative 2. I'll take a times negative 2, that would give me negative 2a. So now I'm looking to get a middle term of positive 4a. Well, if I take the 6a and negative 2a, add them together, I do in fact get 4a. I get positive 4a. So now I need to take my factors of 3a squared, which would be a, quantity, and then you have your 3a, quantity. Well, I multiplied positive 2 times 3a, so I'm going to have a plus 2, because I could take 2 and multiply that by 3a, I get 6a. Which means I multiplied a by negative 2, so I'll have 3a minus 2 for my second quantity, because I'll do a times negative 2, which would give me negative 2a, plus that 6a gives me 4a. So the answer you should get for this quantity would be a plus 2 times the quantity of 3a minus 2. All right. Let's jump a little bit more ahead here. We got 3m squared plus 11mn plus 6n squared. Alright, so we got 3m squared plus 11mn plus 6n squared. Well, first still take your factors of 3m squared. Factors of 3m squared, which would be m and 3m. That checks out, because if you take m times 3m, you get the 3m squared. So those are viable factors of 3m. Everything is positive in this polynomial, so good news is we're not going to have to worry about any negatives. Next, you got to find factors of 6n squared. Now, how's this going to work? There are several factors we could consider. 6n squared, I'm going to go with 2n and 3n. Because if you take 2n times 3n, you get 6n squared, okay? Now, we need to be able to multiply these and add them together, add the results of the multiplication together in such a way that you get a middle term of 11mn. Well, let's go ahead here. What if we took m times 2n? Let's take m times 2n. You would get 2mn. Okay? We took m times 2n, which only leaves 3m times 3n. You'll take 3m times 3n, which when you multiply them together will give you 9mn. Now if you take the results of the multiplication, of which would be 2mn and 9mn, add them together, you in fact get the middle term of 11mn right here, which is what you're seeking, 11mn. So now we go ahead, we take our factors of the 3m squared, which would be m, and since everything's positive in the original polynomial, you'll just do m plus something times the quantity of 3m plus something. Alright, So we multiplied 3m times 3n, so that means you're going to have m plus 3n for your first quantity. So you can take the 3n and multiply that by the 3m, you'll get your 9mn, which just leaves you with the m times 2n. So the answer you should get for this would be the quantity of m plus 3n times the quantity of 3m plus 2n. That's the answer you should get for this when you factor it. Alright, I got about 3 more here. I got 2p squared minus 7pq plus 6q squared. Alright, so I have here 2p squared minus 7pq plus 6q squared. First, let's start out finding factors of 2p squared. Factors of 2p squared, well, that'd be p and 2p. And then if you take p times 2p, you get 2p squared. So those factors check out. Now, I need to find factors of 6q squared. However, the middle term is negative, so what I actually need are 2 factors that are negative of 6q squared, since the middle term is negative. So I'll take 6q squared. See, the middle term can dictate everything, whether it's positive or negative. That changes the outcome of what you need to find for your third term. So what are some factors I can work with of 6q squared that are both negative? Well, I can have negative 2q, negative 3q. That'll certainly work. That's one possibility. Alright. Now I need to be able to multiply these in such a way that when I add the results together, I'll get the middle term of negative 7pq. So, what if I took p times negative 3q? I'll take p times negative 3q, I'll end up getting negative 3pq. So I took p times negative 3q, that can only leave 2p times negative 2q. 2p times negative 2q, that would give me negative 4pq. Now I need to take these results of the multiplication of the factors, add them together. If I take negative 3pq plus negative 4pq, I get negative 7pq. Which is exactly what I need for the middle term, negative 7pq. So now I take my factors of 2p squared, which would be p times the quantity of 2p. Now, since the middle term was a negative and the constant term was positive, I had to find negative factors of 6q squared, so it's going to be minus for both of these. It's going to be p minus something and 2p minus something. Now, what are those somethings? Well, I took 2p times negative 2q, so you'll get the negative 2q times 2p. That'll be what you'll need, because that's what you did over here in your work, 2p times negative 2q, which only leaves p times negative 3q. So the answer you should get for this would be the quantity of p minus 2q, that quantity times 2p minus 3q. All right, two more. Let's see, we got 2x squared plus xy minus 3y squared. All right, so we got 2x squared plus 3xy minus 3y squared. All right, making sure y'all could see it. Okay, so first I need to find factors of 2x squared, which could be x and then 2x. That works. Now I need to find factors, since the third term's negative, I need to find factors of negative 3y squared. Why don't we do... Let's see here. Let's do negative y and positive 3y as our factors. Yeah, negative y and positive 3y. All right, so we need to find a way now to take these two sets of factors, multiply them, then add those results together to get our middle term of positive xy, coefficient of 1, get our positive xy. What if I took x times 3y? If I take x times 3y, I'm going to get 3xy. So I took x times 3y, that means I have left 2x times negative y, which would give me negative 2xy. Now, if I take the results, the 3xy and negative 2xy, add them together, I get positive xy, which is exactly what I'm looking for the middle term. So now that we've achieved the order we need to find our middle term, you're going to take your factors of 2x squared, which would be x, then the quantity of 2x. Now, what did we multiply the 2x by? Always start with that. What did you multiply your 2x by? I multiplied that by negative y, so I'll put the negative y next to it in the first set of parentheses. You'll get x minus y. And then I multiply the x times 3y, which means you'll put the 3y in your second set of parentheses. So you'll get the quantity of x minus y times the quantity of 2x plus 3y. That would be the answer you get for this. And I got one more problem, then we're done for the day. what do we got here? 5a squared minus 2ab minus 7b squared. Alright, so we got 5a squared minus 2ab minus 7b squared. First we need to find factors of 5a squared, which would be a and 5a. Those are factors of 5a squared. Then we need to find factors of negative 7b squared. Since your third term's negative, you find factors of negative 7b squared. Couple ways we can go here. I'm going to say negative, I'm going to say positive b and negative 7b. Positive b and negative 7b. I could have also done negative b and positive 7b, but I pretty much know how this is going to work. I'm going to save us some time. So now we need to find a way to multiply these factors and then add them up in such a way that you get the middle term of negative 2ab. So we'll take a times negative 7b. Pretty much you just experiment with the order and see what you get. And eventually you'll get to a point you won't need to do that. You'll be able to spot it and see exactly what it is. But for now, create your table and experiment with this, see what it is. You have a times negative 7b, which would give you negative 7ab. We did a times negative 7b, which leaves 5a times b. You've got to take 5a times b. That's going to give you 5ab. Now you take the results of each multiplication, add them together, take negative 7ab plus 5ab, you should get negative 2ab. And you get your middle term of negative 2ab. That's exactly what we were seeking. So now you'll take your factors of the 5a squared, which would be a, quantity 5a. Alright. Now start with your 5a. Always start with your second term first. It makes your life a lot easier. What did we multiply 5a by? We multiplied that by positive b. So you'll put your positive b at the end of your first quantity. You'll end up having a plus b, which means we multiplied a by negative 7b. So you'll have 5a minus 7b for your second quantity. And if you FOIL this out, you should end up getting 5a squared minus 2ab minus 7b squared. So the answer for this is the quantity of a plus b times the quantity of 5a minus 7b. So, big thing with these, take the factors of your first term and the factors of your third term. You want to multiply the factors and add them together in such a way that you get your middle term. Now, if you don't get it first try or even second try, don't beat yourself up. This, honestly, the factoring we're doing is probably the hardest type. This is probably the hardest type we'll encounter in Algebra 1. Because factors can be all over the place. Basically, you got to plug it in and experiment until you come up with the right order. And there will be times, like in the past 2 lessons, try as you might, you won't have any factors that work, and you'll end up getting what's called a prime polynomial that doesn't factor. So that sometimes can happen too, even doing this. So that's really all I have for this lesson. The next lesson we're going to do factoring by grouping, which in my opinion is a bit easier than what we did today. So I hope everybody has a good night. Take care.